Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yan Li, and I'm the manager of UNESCO Hong Kong Association, and I'll be the MC today. It's our privilege and honor to have all of you for this forum today. We are now ready to begin the public forum on marine biodiversity, which is jointly organized by Hong Kong branch of Southern Marine Science and Engineering Guangdong Laboratory Guangzhou of Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and also UNESCO Hong Kong Association. Let me first introduce the agenda to you all. We'll have the representative from co-organizers to say a few words, and following by keynote speeches, guest speakers' presentation, and panel discussion with Q&A section. Now, let me introduce Professor Qian Pei Yuan, David von Hansman Professor of Science, Head and Chair Professor of Department of Ocean Science, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Welcome, Professor Qian.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Honorable Mr. Professor Zhang, Professor Wang, and the ladies and gentlemen. It really gives me the great honor to welcome all of you here today, and also to the people online to attending this the public forum on marine biodiversity. This is a forum is organized by the Hong Kong University, particularly the Department of Ocean Science, and the Hong Kong branch of the Southern Marine Science and Engineering Guangdong Laboratory, in collaboration with the UNESCO Hong Kong. So the Professor Zhang here, with us today. This forum, is also in conjunction with so-called global climate change, a big topic right now under discussion in Glasgow of the UK. It's also in conjunction with the World Biodiversity Conference that held last month in Kunming. So biodiversity is actually part of your and my life. It's also the critical players in our life-supporting system of our planet. The biodiversity is also precious. As estimated and quoted by the former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, the biodiversity value alone is about 3.5 trillion in early 2000. The ecosystem value related to the biodiversity, a worth of $35 trillion in early this century, which is exactly equivalent to the GDP in the year when he delivers the speech. So biodiversity is very, very important. Yet, the biodiversity is dropping or decreasing at very, very, the high speed. We lose about somewhere between 40 to 140 species per day. Over the last 30 years, we lost somewhere between 15,000 to 50,000 species per year due to deforestation alone. So many of the species disappeared before we even got to know them. How many species actually we have when we're talking about biodiversity? The honest answer is we do not know. The estimated biodiversity or the number of the species on our planet is about 8.5 billion plants and animals, without counting microbes. Only about 15% of those species has been described so far. And most of them is unknown to us for simple reasons. Most of those species we know, also called the described species, are primarily from land, also the coastal waters. Yet, 90% of our open oceans, also the ocean environment, remained unexplored to us. The reason is very simple. The vast volume of the ocean environment, which is about over 300 times of the volume of the terrestrial ecosystem. When we do not know about 90% of them, meaning that we really know very tiny fraction of our planet. This is really call for great effort for studies marine biodiversity. UN urged each of the country to develop their own strategies and plan to protect their biodiversities. And UN also urged countries, also economy, to protect the biodiversity by designating certain area as a protected area. So their goal is 30% of the land or oceans, for the protection in the next 10 to 15 years, which is really tough goal to achieve for simple reason. Up to this moment, at global scales, only 17% of the land, 7% of the ocean have been reserved as the so-called parks, all the reserve with some sort of the protections. So from 17 or 7% to the 30% is a long way to go. This is why we are here, to talking about marine biodiversity. So I'm really excited about the talks from our distinguished speakers, honest guests for this afternoon. So welcome you all to this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Chen, for wonderful remarks. As the co-organizer, let's welcome Professor Karen Chen, the Executive President and Secretary General of UNESCO Hong Kong Association, to deliver a welcome message as well. Welcome, Professor Chen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ng, Professor Chen, dear speakers, guests, teachers, and students. It's my pleasure to deliver the opening address and have to join us this Saturday for the public forum on marine biodiversity. We have invited experts on marine-related issues from the government, business leaders, the education sector, and expert researchers and youth to discuss with us the topic of marine biodiversity. There has been increasing discussion surrounding marine biodiversity as it is directly related to the biggest current concern from all nations around the globe at present, climate change and sustainable development. The COP26 is currently running on the other side of the planet, from Copenhagen to Glasgow. Over the 10 years, our Mother Earth has experienced huge changes, especially under uncertainties caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. We need to recognize our relationship with the planet and make systematic transformations. Every one of us, government, business, academic, students, are a part of the transformation and ought to take our responsibility in global movement. According to the United Nations, the ocean covers more than 19% of the habitable space of our planet, and is estimated that there could be as much as 10 million different marine species sharing the marine ecosystem with us. However, we have not treated them with care. Climate change and increased temperature has made ocean water more acidic, which disrupted the living environment for marine lives. Human consumption of fish prospered the fisheries industry, with fish production reaches about 179 million tons in 2018. Island tourism has also distracted major coral reef areas, and preserving the biodiversity of corals serves great importance to maintain the balance of the marine ecosystem. We could be aware that Hong Kong is a coastal city. We live side by side to the ocean, and therefore, preserving marine diversity is especially critical for Hong Kong. Hundreds of years ago, Hong Kong is just a small fishing village, but by having the ocean beside us, our economy has grown rapidly from its access to international trade, becoming the global trading and financial center of today. The ocean also provides us with food on our plate, household water used every day. Their precious learning resources and the marine lives are doing a remarkable job of supporting our daily activities. In fact, according to the WWF, Hong Kong waters has very high coral diversity. The Ha Hoi Wan Marine Park alone hosts more than 17% of our local species. Nevertheless, reclamation of large tracts from the sea due to land shortage and sustainable lifestyle, filling the ocean up with mass practice litter, fashion of ocean and marine biodiversity in Hong Kong. On an international level, UNESCO has established the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission to support research and service on ocean science. Regionally, the UNESCO Hong Kong Association, working hand in hand with the Hong Kong Institute of Education for Sustainable Development, has followed the 5 action priorities highlighted in the Berlin Declaration on Education for Sustainable Development. Adopted in May 2021, during the UNESCO World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development, including policy advancement, changing the learning environment, cultivating the capacity of educators, empowering youth, and accelerating local actions to promote sustainable development and achievement of Goal 14 of the UN SDGs, life underwater in Hong Kong. We have worked to engage business leaders and government actors to urge for marine biodiversity action, as well as bringing local and international UNESCO events and initiatives. One of our major focus in empowering youth, we've launched the UNESCO Hong Kong Green Citizen Youth Ambassador Program to give opportunity to youth in Hong Kong to share their perspective on sustainable development on the global platform. Our flagship ESD learning program has been running over 10 years. It corresponds to improving learning environment, and one of the themes this year is on marine biodiversity. Students will get a blend of experiential learning and research-based learning, increasing students' awareness surrounding marine biodiversity issues is one critical part of promoting marine biodiversity. To cultivate the capacity of educators, we provide various training and courses for teachers on the sustainable development goals, hoping to educate the educators to allow them to use SDG content in their teaching and integrated ESD into school curriculums. Finally, our High 17 SDGs podcast, in which a certified sustainable development planner will explain one of the SDGs to the public each actual aims to improve SDG awareness of Hong Kong citizens. Today's public forum is yet another example for our effort to engage communities in Hong Kong in discussion surrounding sustainable development and marine biodiversity. With COP26 and COP15, we must realize that the negative impact of human activities on marine biodiversity is pushing the planetary boundary. More than ever, different parties of the societies and professions in different industries needed to work collaboratively to embrace marine biodiversity and to transform the current status to a more sustainable future. I wish the forum a great success, and please look forward to exciting talks that follows. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang. Thank you. Today, we are also honored to invite the former Secretary for the Education of the Hong Kong government and also the Honorary President of GHK MGBA Economic and Trade Institute, Mr. Eddie Ng, GBSJP, to deliver a keynote speech first. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ng.
Thank you. Professor Chin, should I call you Madam Zhang or Professor Zhang? And distinguished speakers, gentlemen, all the attendants, good afternoon. You can sense that my sound, my noise taking a little bit shaky because in front of all the experts, I'm not sure what I would be talking about. Yet, better preparation is always helpful. That's why I have prepared about 2 hours PowerPoint. So with this one, I think I will be able to address that. So I'll run through that very quickly. The idea I really want to say is, a week ago, I have not much knowledge, idea about what is the marine biodiversity is. But now I think I have some idea what it is. When I have the guts to relay that to our environment, to our focus, Hong Kong, Greater Bay Areas, mainland, region, internationally, I think I have a better confidence to talk about the subject. Again, we really want to congratulate the UNESCO office and UST for great work done together with the Southern China Institute. COP15 is the number we need to remember. It embraces a lot of things. If you want to have a good reading, try this topic. It will consume you at least 2 weeks of the Google reading, at least 2 weeks, 24 hours per day. I do remember on the COP Kunming in China, that was, I believe, October last year, and then the president ceased talking about that one. Initially, he just said, well, let's start the conversation with one simple thing. This is important. So I put up the COP Kunming Biodiversity Fund of US dollars 230 million to begin with. I understand Japan follows by 17 million. Another message need to remember, we are not just talking about what's happening in the ocean. We are talking about the interaction between man and the nature, or woman and the nature, to be politically right. Yeah. It is relevant to Hong Kong. It is relevant to everyone in Hong Kong. On this chart, just remember 3 things. Our ocean is at risk. Our ocean is at risk. If you've been enjoying seafood every day, every week, your seafood dishes are at risk. So let's put it this way to get it closer to you. And second, ocean is important. It occupies 70% of our usable space on Earth. So 70%. If the latest COP26 talking about everything in air, everything on Earth, on land, but not much talking about the ocean. We are sort of ignoring the 70% areas that we are in. Another thing equally important in threatening our seafood dishes is that 34.2% of the global fisheries are overstocked, over sort of stock taking, meaning it is overfishing, over-consuming. So if you translated 34% for 1 year, how many years you consume the 100% wastage? That's easily counted. In the case of Hong Kong, we have a very, very interesting gifted land in front of us. We set a lot of people to feel land available. More importantly, actually we have a lot of space, but not sort of on solid soil, but together with the ocean. We have a very long and spacious marine areas. While it is only 0.03% of our mainland's total areas, in terms of the species, actually we occupy over 26% of them. Now this is a very, very interesting mix. That means what? Actually we are quite important, but how important do we know? Actually we don't know much about it. We just live on what we have been able to touch As Professor Chin mentioned, we actually have 90% of them, we have no idea at all. Not knowing it is not guilt, but not knowing it and try to avoid it is guilty. If I may look at the issue in front of us, two layman points we need to understand. The marine populations, meaning the species and so on, actually is not just disappearing, but indeed it is a total decline in abundance. Total decline in abundance. Disappear. Extinct. This is what we are after. If the 10% we know, some of them are disappearing, you have no idea what's the associated disappearance of the 90%. Therefore, Jane Goodall did say one thing which I like, and that is, only when we understand, we start knowing we can be caring. Only when we care, we will be able to offer the help. And only when we really take action to help, we may be able to save ourselves. I read a book several years back, but that's one of the best practice books, particular for the business world. That is the Knowing Doing Gap. This is a very good book. When I was with Motorola and AT&T, this is a must-read book for all the managers. If you haven't read this book, try not to be promoted. First of all, do I know? Everybody heard about it. Every day's TV news. COP26. What is it? You know it? Do you understand it? So are the other arguing, try to understand it. Marine, I know. Bio, I know. Diversity, I know. When you put the three together, do you understand? This is what that means. If I know it and I understand it, do I know how to address it by acting on it? Do I know how to do it? I would say I know it, I have a bit better understanding, I have no idea how to do it. So picking up how in order to act on it. So if you don't know the how, you will never be able to address it. Even though you know how to do it, are you going to do it? And everybody will be saying, well, the government should do this, the professor should do this, the world should do this. But how about yourself? I believe in more about ourselves. I start doing it. When I start doing it, then I expect I have the right to ask other people to do it. If I haven't even done it, then I keep on asking other people doing it. And doing it, practicing it right now, then the next question is, what next? This is the best book I ever had. All my 35 corporate experience, I rely a lot on this particular book. How to make sure our people, particularly our young people, to know this issue. Actually, Hong Kong is not short of actions on this one. For example, we do have 6 marine parks and a marine reserve, and these are functioning every day and fully booked and occupied, but that's not enough. This would help. Do I know it? Do I understand it? But I'm not getting into the how to do it. I know it, but I didn't practice it. Is it better? I'm back. This is a very interesting program, the Seafront. There are a lot of programs taking place. I personally engaged in around 3 of them, and I physically went to Bat Lai village. And I noticed that two things impressed me upon. There are quite a lot of the sort of the seafood targets I have been able to touch physically. The other one is I found out there were some of the aged historic stones, like the Stone Age type of the tools, actually over 10,000 years. One actually is 50,000 years. I physically touch it. Then I have a different sense when I look at it again in terms of sentiment. Government is never coming late, even though it's a little bit late. If you look at the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan 2050, you'll be able to see that a lot of things coming. And carbon neutrality, hopefully in or before 2050. That's what it said. It embraced a lot of actions, including net zero electricity generation, energy saving and green building, green transport, waste reduction. There's a Council of Sustainable Development overseeing that. Where's the 70% ocean area that we are in? What's happening to my future supply of seafood chain, or the 海鮮? Therefore, I do want to share, as the last second page, my observations. There's a reason for me being here. I would like to see the research and development capacities existing in universities, this is particularly UST. I realize it today. The only program so far for the undergrad is actually built only a few years back, and I haven't had the first cohort yet, and they are starting it right on time, right after the COP26. The business community, we do have a representative in the Legislative Council on Fishery and Agriculture. Where are the funding sources other than the RDC and then the UGC? There must be a lot of others. There are a lot of corporations actually engaging in this particular sector. Have we been able to align with them? How many people actually are able to get engaged into that? Particularly how many young people have the chance to understand and to get engaged? That is the key. How many? I actually couldn't find particular evidence yet, other than try to understand it and know it. One area which we forgot, underplay a lot, actually a lot of expertise, ocean park. I have seen a lot of ocean parks around the world doing a lot of labs, doing a lot of research work. And they have the business direct link capacity to address that. The second one is I do believe this is a very, very top strength area and strong area for Hong Kong, but so much underdeveloped. So therefore, everyone here in the room, hopefully we will be able to do something right after today. Go back and see what you can do to do something about it, because it's going to touch our health, our food chain, our environment, and our human well-being all together. We need to leverage. Hong Kong is a small space, 7.5 million people, small city, but we have a lot of strength. Therefore, we need to leverage with other strength together. In the southern part of China, in the whole China, and in the Hainan Island, in the Qingdao. Qingdao, one of the earliest sort of a research center, and particularly in, say, Australia. Australia is the largest species around the world. And need to do a lot of the work to motivate our young people, to get them interested in and be able to get their actions together. Particular create school activities to build all this. This is a very interesting picture. I just got engaged recently. This is my dream. I start with the kindergarten kids. There are about 150,000 kindergarten kids in Hong Kong. We said, well, they are too young to do anything. I'm telling you, these pottery arts, particularly designed for the kindergartens, these turtles, these fishes, were produced by them. And when they produce it, they realize it. What is it? What difficulties the turtle actually had faced with all along? The environmental, the fish net sort of cutting the neck. All these things, they start realize it. And they realize it, the plastic materials inside the deep ocean, what does that mean? Actually, they are able to teach their parents, KG students teaching the kids. So if you look at it from that angle, this is the key. Therefore, I hope this is just a few points of reminder, and I'll be able to just get a bit more of your attention. The key thing is let's start understanding more. Let's try to do something about it, and we act on our own first before we ask other people to act on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ng, for his remarkable presentation. Other than Mr. Ng, we have also invited in another keynote speaker, but he can join us in person today. He is Dr. Chen Shang. He will deliver a keynote speech, and he is the Vice Chair of Marine Committees, Council Member of Chinese Ecological Economists Society, Co-Chair of Working Group for Ecosystem Services, Member of Committee on Human Dimensions of Marine System, North Pacific Marine Science Organization. So let's watch his pre-recorded speech and presentation together.
Dear Champion Professor, Zhang Qing Professor, Wu Kejian Shensen, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Many thanks for inviting me to give a talk during the public forum on marine biodiversity. I'm in Qingdao City, Shandong Province. Today, my talk is on how to assess the monetary value of marine biodiversity maintenance services. Under the United Nations system, the Convention on Biological Diversity defines the biodiversity as the diversity of organisms from all sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes they constitute, which consists of diversity within species, between species, and between ecosystems. In short, biodiversity is the sum of all plants, animals, and microorganisms. This concept is accepted by most of the people. Biodiversity has three levels. The first level is the genetic diversity among different individuals within one species. The second level is the species diversity among different species at biological community level. The third one is the ecosystem diversity among different ecosystems at landscape level. Marine biological community plus their habitat, seawater, and surface seaweed form into one ecosystem. Marine ecosystem provide us 4 group services and 13 kinds of services. For example, we get seafood production, climate regulation, nature and recreation, species diversity maintenance from the sea. To species biodiversity maintenance services, its value are mainly contributed by the rare and endangered species, especially contributed by the registered species in the National Key Protection Name List. And its value attribute belong to the long-use value or existence value, intrinsic value. They are not market price for this species. The U.S. economists have developed one method to assess the value of public goods without market price. That is contingent valuation measure. This survey arm has been widely accepted. Here we use the method survey arm to assess the willingness of urban residents to pay for national key protected species, then calculate the monetary value of the species diversity maintenance services. This formula is to calculate the monetary value of the species diversity maintenance. This is the monetary value of species maintenance. This WTP is willing to pay for biodiversity maintenance services. The P means the total number of population. H is the average household size. That means the number of population for one household. Eta is the payment rate of surveyed population. We got the WTP regression model. This form is for the city, for the coastal regions around the White Sea and the Yellow Sea. The WTP is here is the WTP. They are highly depend on the household income level. This value reflects the ocean awareness of the residents. This is for East China Sea. This one is for the South China Sea, the residents. From the Bohai Sea, Huanghai Sea to East China Sea and South China Sea, we find that ocean awareness increased. This number reflects the ocean awareness. Is the South China Sea. Around the South China Sea, the reference to the ocean awareness is higher than East China Sea and White Sea and Yellow Sea. A questionnaire was developed and conducted for coastal cities around the Bohai Sea, Yellow Sea, East China Sea, and South China Sea. The 4 services are conducted face-to-face to get the willing to pay of urban residents for 30 national protected species. This is species Chinese dolphin, Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin. This species is distributed in Hong Kong waters. The willing to pay is highest, about 20 yen per household per year. The second is the Chinese sturgeon, 8 Chinese yen per household per year. The third higher is red Korean, 6.4 Chinese yen. The fourth one is first sale, 5.6 Chinese yen. The dugong is 3.4 Chinese yen. Spotted sale, 2.3 Chinese yen. For red coral, 2 Chinese yen. For Chinese agri, 1.3 Chinese yuan. For this worm in my city, it's only 1 Chinese yuan. The total willing to pay from the Guangdong province is highest, more than 1.5 billion. The second high total willing to pay is from Jiangsu. The third one is from Shandong province. The fourth is from Zhejiang province. The willing to pay depends on the income level and the person's ocean awareness. The value of species diversity maintenance services is the total willing to pay from 12 coastal provinces. The total value of 30 species is 9.459 billion Chinese yuan per year. The average value is 350 million yuan per species in 1 year. This 7 species value is more than the average. The total value accounts 50% of the total value. The Chinese dolphin is the famous star species. Its value reached 1.578 billion Chinese yuan per year, account 17% of the total. And each individual Chinese dolphin is worth 394,000 Chinese yuan per year, about 500,000 Chinese yuan. While the price of this Chinese dolphin, decided by Agriculture Ministry, is 2 million Chinese yuan. If we consider that in all inland urban residents willing to pay, the total value of this Chinese dolphin will reach about 2 million Chinese yuan. If we consider the species diversity maintenance service and the ecosystem diversity maintenance service together, we get the map. The red means the highest value. The yellow is the medium. The green is the low value. In the OIC, the high value in Yellow River Delta wetland, also in Yangjiang areas. In East China Sea, the high value in the Shanghai coastal waters, there are the Yangtze River estuary. In South China Sea, the high value is around the Hong Kong waters, Shenzhen waters, also in the Zhejiang, Pennsylvania waters. The sea is a life support system of us. We need a sea, not sea need us. I expect to see that sea creatures smile. In history, Chinese nation lost the ocean to realize the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. The point is still in ocean. I sincerely want everyone care about the ocean more, understand the ocean. Let's manage the ocean for our shared future. Thank you.
A very informative and detailed sharing. So we'd like to express our gratitude to the keynote speaker first. So may I now invite Professor Qian Pei Yuan and also Professor Karen Zhang to present the thank you certificate and also souvenir to Mr. Eddie Ng first. Professor Qian, Professor Zhang, and Mr. Ng, please come forward. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. Before our break time, we wish to have a group photo with all the participants. And the first group photo we will take right here, and our photographer will shoot the photo from our side, and you can just remain on seat first. After that, we wish to invite all of you to go outside in front of the backdrop for another group photo. Then we'll have an around 15 minutes break and come back at 3:50. Okay? 3, 2, 1. Okay, another photo, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. Let's go out for another group photo in front of the backdrop first. Okay, may I have your kind attention, please? We are about to begin the next section. First of all, you are all invited to scan the QR code on the screen anytime to ask speakers questions, and our staff will select some of the questions and which will be discussed during the panel discussion and Q&A section. Okay. First of all, let me introduce our first guest speaker, Professor Thomas C.C. Wong, Executive Committee Member and Chairman of Sustainable Development Committee of the Chinese Manufacturers Association of Hong Kong, and also the former advisor of Endangered Animal and Plant Office, Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department of the Hong Kong government, to share with us the economic value of marine biodiversity. Please join me in welcoming Professor Thomas Wong.
Hello. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good afternoon. My topic today is economic value of marine biodiversity. This is me. Okay, I was thinking, how should I go about talking about this? Maybe I will start with what is marine biodiversity, and then why is it important, and then the economic value, things like marine spatial planning and all this. But I thought that would be boring, wouldn't it? So I said, no, I'm not going to do this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start with some romantic stories. And since all our audience are intelligent people, so we'll be talking about intelligence. And then at the end of the day, of course, we have to come back to how this would help our challenges. How would they help us to face our challenges? Romantic. Don't we all love romantic stories? Let's start with this one. John loved his wife, community, nation, and planet Earth. But one day, planet Earth received warnings from aliens, said that, hey, human beings, we are on our way. We are coming to destroy you, to conquer you. So John said to himself, I want to save my family. I want to save the world. So first of all, John had to find out, why would the aliens come and conquer us? When you start a war, there must be something you want to get from the other people. That's why you would start a war, right? So what would these aliens possibly want from the Earth? He looked at himself, he said, what is of most value to me? Diamonds gold, but he knows aliens are not interested in this because diamonds and gold are symbolic values for humans. Practical value, very small. Maybe they're looking for energy, petroleums, but then John think, with aliens, if they can travel at light speed, they must possess nuclear fission. So petroleum would be of no value to them. John's think maybe it's water. Besides, 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by water. Maybe that is the answer. But later on, he found out that that is not true, because in satellites, in Neptune and Jupiter, there are also water, maybe more water than Earth. So what would possibly these aliens wander from Earth? The answer is very simple. Biodiversity. Why is that? Because every time, okay, to start with, we are like a single-cell amoeba-like organism. And when we evolve like a complex organism, like a horse, like a bird, like a fish, every time we evolve, it's a solution to the problem we face at that time. So that means on every single organism, when you look at the DNA, it contains solutions to hundreds or thousands answers to problems. And if we have so many different organisms in the world, we are talking about millions or billions of solutions. So that is of value in the universe. Diversity, biodiversity. Let's go to another story. I think many of us might have read this book, The Three-Body Problem, by Liu Zhen, and it was made into a movie, Wandering Earth. The story goes like this. Human beings find out that the solar system, not just the Earth, the solar system will be destroyed sometime in the future. So they come up with three options to save human beings. The first option is very simple. They will make millions of spaceships, and on each one, they put a few thousand human beings onto the spaceship, and they fire them off in all different directions. Of course, the human beings will be put to sleep at the beginning. And when this spaceship lands on a planet, a strange planet, the computer would test. If the planet is suitable for humans, they will wake the people up. If not, they would go about to another planet. The second option is they will make a dozen of big spaceships, and each one of them, they put millions and millions of humans, like cities, and they go to different directions. And the third is most difficult solution, and that is they will move the whole Earth out of orbit. Ladies and gentlemen, which option would you go for? I talk to my friends, they say, isn't it obvious? Of course, option one, because it's simple, easy, sensible, and you don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So you get highest chance of survival for human beings. But the scientists go for option three. And the reason? Again, biodiversity. So that is how important biodiversity is. So how about marine biodiversity? Look at these figures. Many of these figures you know. Water covers 70% of the Earth's surface. And unlike when human beings live on the Earth's surface, we are like living on a flatland. But in the ocean, we're talking about from sea level to 8,000 meters below. And they provide food for us, and it's climate regulators. And it's quality of life, I mean, sport, leisure, entertainment, and all this, marine biodiversity. And the ocean and marine biodiversity provide all of this to us, all that we need, without asking anything back from us. So all give to us, and nothing they ask back. Isn't it romantic? Okay, so that is the romantic part. In front of all these intelligent people, I have to come up with some intelligent topic as well. Human beings, how do we connect with each other, especially with strangers? economic activities is the most efficient way of connecting human beings. Anything, if we want anything to work, we human beings must buy the idea. So if we human beings don't buy the idea of marine biodiversity, then any discussion on marine biodiversity is meaningless, fruitless. So when we are talking about value, what are we talking about? I mean, we know that it's not just money we are talking about. We are talking about whole value system and the ground rules of our culture, such as how do we increase our value? For example, how to make more money and all this. How to protect our asset. What to do to trade or exchange what we have with things that other people have but we don't have, or something that we want from the other people. How do we exchange or trade with them? And then it comes back to what are our product or service that the other people want. So this is a whole part of the value system. I mean, the speakers before me, they have sort of touched upon this topic. Just fish, over 30,000, something like 34,000 species. And this is more than birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals combined. That is the type of biodiversity we have in marine. And we're talking about just fish. I would like to use COP15, Kunming Conference. And in the Kunming Declaration, it says, ecological civilization, building a shared future for all life on Earth. To me, the key word is shared future and life on Earth. These are the two key words that hits me. So how do we face our challenges after we hear this romantic story, after all this intelligence? I propose balance and metaverse. Balance may be easy to understand, but we'll go into this later on a bit. How about metaverse? What does metaverse has anything to do with marine biodiversity? Ladies and gentlemen, I propose to you that it has a lot to do with marine biodiversity. Let's see what happens. Balance and metaverse. What do we mean by balance? We can go into the Mediterranean to give you examples, unsustainable and destructive fishing practice, environmental phenomenon, discarded fishing gears. All these, we can talk about this. But how about solutions? But in addition to what the last slides, we have even more difficulties, different governments and different standards. Just with EU, we have the Treaty of Lisbon, and we have the Sustainable Development in the European Union. There are different standards, even within the EU. So they make a challenging situation even more challenging. So what are the solutions? First of all, we have to ask ourselves, for that fish, do we want to put it on the desk as our food, or we want to leave it in the ocean? So when we are talking about quality of life, are we talking about human life or marine life? So the balance is very important. For balance, I mean economic, ecological, and social values. So it's balance and management. Metaverse. How could possibly metaverse has anything to do with marine biodiversity? Metaverse is the best way to define ownership. And with ownership, it comes privileges and liabilities. For example, if my shoes has its own digital ID, and if one day you find a dead dolphin on the beach, and when you do the autopsy, you see that there's my shoes inside the dolphin's stomach, and you can trace it back to me, I think I would think twice to see where my shoes would end up to. So in the metaverse, everything will have their own unique digital ID. Maybe you think, hey, Thomas, this is almost impossible, if not difficult or expensive. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. 30 years ago, if you have 1 million photos of human beings on your left hand, on the right hand, you have one photo of someone you want to look for, and you ask a computer engineer and say, can you compare this and tell me if there's any match? The computer engineer 30 years ago, he would tell you, well, it's possible, but it takes almost a month, and it's very expensive. But now, with Facebook, by the way, they changed name to Meta, yeah? They can do a face recognition nowadays in just 1 second. And they can do more than 1 million. The database is what? 1 billion faces, just in 1 second. What was impossible 30 years ago is just click of our finger today. What is impossible today, 20, 30 years ago, is a piece of cake. So digital IDs. So ladies and gentlemen, I propose that we know how important marine biodiversity is. You know, even the aliens, they want it from us. And the value to us. And the way to solve this is balance and metaverse. So I would say that allow everyone to see the value of marine biodiversity and therefore agree on collective choices for a preferred future. Because if we human beings do not agree and do not see it as a value, there's no way that we can do anything. So, lastly, our relationship with the Earth. Now we dominate the Earth, like we are like the owner of the Earth. Do we want to continue doing this? Or we want to enjoy Earth, to love and protect Earth? So to end up, I will use United Nations 2050 vision for biodiversity, living in harmony with nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Wang, to share his different angle to see the relationship between human beings and marine biodiversity. So moving right along, we'll have another guest speaker, Professor Diwa Chong, the Society President of Ecological Society of Hong Kong, academic consultant of Laboratory of Ichthyology, Shanghai Ocean University, and also the visiting professor, School of Life Sciences, Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology of Fudan University. And he'll share with us the diversity on the marine fishes of Hong Kong. Welcome, Professor Chong.
Oh, thank you, and nice to meet you all. Actually, what I'm going to talking about is about diversity of marine fishes of Hong Kong, and as you know, that time I established founded the Ecological Society of Hong Kong in more than 13 years ago, and I found that. At that time, I found that it's quite strange that Hong Kong has a fish biodiversity because of surrounding by the ocean and also the northern part of Shenzhen River, and we have both freshwater fishes and also the marine fishes, and also in the western part of Hong Kong, we have a Pearl River. It's an international grade of a big river opening in our western part, and then affecting Hong Kong a lot. And then we have a lot of fishes and biodiversity, and also the environmental heterogeneity is from western to eastern. All the environment are gradually changing. It's not one kind. So we are not in the middle of the ocean, and also we also have located in the southern part of margin of the southern China. So we have ocean, we have rivers, and also we have from estuarine to transitional to the oceanic environment, from western to eastern. It's very complicated. So we have about 1,000 species we recorded. And also, this arrangement is not easy because I'm a taxonomist, and I'm very classic type of taxonomist. I'm doing the taxonomy with the characteristics, morphological characteristics, the outlooking, and also spines and scales, and just to identifying fishes. So not using the genetics. So we found that many fishes has to be combined with the names because we have synonyms. The same fish that same kind of fish that found in different kind of locations around the world, and then we have to combine the name, and then we replace it with the oldest. We called it senior synonym. And then the junior synonyms are after, and then the newer, and then we have to replace all. So this is the brief introduction that I've done in the previous several decades. Okay, we going forward, and we have biodiversity, and from viruses and then to very complicated vertebrates in this kind of distribution, and you see some. It's okay. So, yeah, and we have a lot of changes in this decade because we have the technology on genetics, because it differs from mine, the classic classification. We are using the morphological characteristic, but the newest is engaged in the molecular. It's about DNA. So we have totally we obtained a very different tree of life. In evolution, from very simple form to complicated form, there's an evolution, and then we have a tree of life, like a tree, and then they are evolving into different kinds of habitats, and then selected, and then they are changing shapes, and also the structure and also function of the body, and then we have a lot of life forms, and the taxonomy becomes much more diverse, and then also we maybe for students that it's very difficult to understand because it's molecular. It's not by hand, but you have to do it in a very high tech. And then the fish is also the same. And then we have to adapt into this kind of molecular classification. And then changing. This is fish. This is the all kind of living organisms. And then just this part is vertebrates, and then the vertebrates we are still living in the water is fishes. Okay, so we're talking about fish still, and from very different form, is primitive form of fish, and then to the most advanced, and also here you see this is tetrapod. Tetrapod it's go up to the land and then become just like us. It's have four limbs. So that is we're talking about fish, and that's also talking about the fishes found in Hong Kong. The groups is here, and then we use this kind of characteristics, and then we identified fish in Hong Kong. Okay, sharks, and also the bony fishes, so cartilaginous fishes, bony fishes, and that's the only one. This is the most primitive one. Is without jaw. It's jawless fish. It's not existing in Hong Kong because it's quite northern. Okay, so go on and talk about the let's talk about the marine environment of Hong Kong. This is very simple form that I can introduce. In the eastern part, there's a rocky shore, a sandy shore, and affected by the typhoon. And in the middle, we found that we are occupied by human, and then polluted and also metallized. And at the western part, there are because we are affected by the Pearl River, so it is muddy and it's yellowish water and then full of muds and also very high in nutrients. So look at this. This is the distribution of Hong Kong. Just look like a very simple form. And then those fishes in the water from western to eastern, that in different environment we have a series of gradual changes in different kind of fishes. Okay, let's look into it. And also I also have to talk about the because this is the background of Hong Kong that I have to face. This is the sea level changes of Pleistocene. It's talking about 40,000 years to 10,000 years ago. And then there's a very severe sea level changes. Because when the Earth becomes an ice form, and then the ice will remain on the land, but not into the sea. So the sea level changes will sea level will go lower, and then up to 150 meters below now. So it's not so difficult to understand that Hong Kong becomes a totally land. So what I'm trying to talk is to tell you is the Hong Kong marine fish and they are secondarily invaded Hong Kong's water. So this is very important. So the environments are always changing. It's not always in very steady and stable. So okay. This is my freshwater fish analysis. So the orange part is the water divides of among the regions, and then even the freshwater fish it divided into this kind of system. Okay, this is Hong Kong. So we are facing totally is affected by the water of the Pearl River. So the hydrology of the river water from Pearl River, freshwater and the marine water is just like this. And so okay, so this is freshwater and this is salty. It's very clear. So the so different kind of fishes will invade different type of environments in Hong Kong. And just like this, is there any pointer? Sorry. So this, oh, okay. The sharks and rays, and also herrings, and also eels, the mullets, gropers, and also the bottom surface fishes, just like flatfishes, and also the pufferfish. These are all very popular in Hong Kong, and they live on different kind of based on different kind of foods. And then the foods are divided in two different kinds. One is planktonic, one is the benthos. So because of this, we calculated in Hong Kong there are 45 orders and 135 families, and then genus 478 genus and species in about 1,000. And then so in South China Sea, we previously recorded this 60, 67, 309, and 1,274. And so we see totally for the world, will be 50% of the orders existing in Hong Kong. Is great. The biodiversity is unbelievable. So about family, it reduces, but still have a 1/4 to a family existing in Hong Kong. Genus, so 0.09, and species is 0.03. So what I'm trying to say in this this part is, we are classifying to order and family. This is a classification. This is talking about the closer relationship. So the representative of order is about 50%. Is very, very important. So many representative fishes around the world is existing in Hong Kong. Okay. This is diversity of it's about the order, and also it's not so difficult to understand the perch, Percival. That's just like sea bream, and this is the perch, just like butterfly fish and so on and so forth. That's all included. And the second is gobiform. It's one of my target of the group of fish that doing studies. And okay, so we because we are located in the estuary, so gobies it's dominated in Hong Kong. It's highly diverse in the muddy and also rocky, and also the coral reefs. And then it occupies about 7% of the family. Okay, so just look at. I think better to look at the pictures. Sharks in Hong Kong. And rays as electric rays. And these are bottom surface. And the bony fishes is sturgeon. This penetrates Pearl River. And also herrings, eels, different kinds, and also the herrings and the catfish. And cods and squirrel fishes. I think it's too many species, so I would like you to have a look today. It's huge. So these are what we found in Hong Kong. Some are very familiar, but maybe some are very rare, but still counted. So it's very easy to understand that there are so many type and shape of fishes. Then it will be found in Hong Kong. So we have to protect it. And then someone that asked about we have several marine parks in Hong Kong. Where should we place the coming? And then I answered, Hong Kong itself is such a small place, and then I would like to have a whole place for Hong Kong to become a marine park, because this is itself is the environment and also fishes are very diverse, and then we have to protect. And then it's not only talking about the bank trawling or something. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chong. Okay. Actually, other than our on-site participants today, there are a lot of about 100 of online audience. They join our forums today. So any of you, if you would like to ask Professor Chong or other speakers for some questions, please scan the QR code again and enter your question, and we will deal with it during the panel discussion part. So moving right along, may I now invite another guest speaker, Professor Liu Hongbin, Associate Head and Chair Professor of Department of Ocean Science, Professor of Division of Life Science, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, to share with us the amazingly high diversity of marine cyanobacteria. Welcome, Professor Liu.
Good afternoon. Is it work? Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce something really probably most of you don't know. As the previous speaker already said, it's pretty boring, maybe talking about but still, when you talk about biodiversity, now we are often talking about whale, turtle. What I'm going to talk is something invisible. It's microscopic, but they are very high diversity. Okay, so blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, okay, although it's not algae, usually called blue-green algae. It's the first photosynthetic organism on the Earth. Okay, so this microfossil indicate that almost 3 billion years ago, they are the first photosynthetic organisms. Okay, because I prepared quite some slides, I may just skip each. I'm not going to talk very detailed. I just realized I don't have enough time. So, and not only we have evidence for this from this microfossil, we do have some living fossil. Okay, so this is called stromatolites. Okay, this is kind of a stone, which is a cyanobacteria. They are very, very old. Okay, the cyanobacteria, the minerals precipitating, forming this kind of structure. And you can see this in Australia, some shallow lagoon. Okay, and they are also very, very old, and some of them are relatively new, only a few thousand old. So that's still forming. And cyanobacteria can be found everywhere, okay? Everywhere, virtually everywhere. So if they are in the fresh water, marine water, they are in the soil, rocks, even desert, okay? And they form symbiotic relationship with plants and animals, okay? So virtually everywhere. They can live in some extreme environment. For example, in hot spring, okay? And they can form harmful bloom. This one in Taihu, okay? And it blooms everywhere, every year, somewhere, okay? And lots of them are toxic, okay? So one of the most common one is microcystin, which is quite toxic. So why do we care? Okay, we are all talking about climate change, global warming. Okay, so since they are photosynthetic organisms, they convert CO2 to organic carbon and produce oxygen. So why it's significant? Okay, because they are the base of the food chain, and they supply all the energy, all the high-level organisms as the food for them. So we know that fishery, marine, ocean provide lots of protein, especially for less developed countries. So they are very important. They are the base of the, and especially at this moment, we are talking about carbon cycle. We are care of global change. As many of us already heard, there's a summit taking place right now. Okay, so global warming is really an issue you have been hearing almost every day. Okay, so our planet has, the temperature has risen about 1 degree in the last century, okay? And we believe that this warming is caused by human being. We are burning fossil fuel, and we are destroying our forests, etc. So anthropogenic CO2 is one of the #1 greenhouse gas. Okay, so this is a record start from 1958 at top of the Mauna Loa mountain in Hawaii. So you see, it started with around 300. Now it's 400. If you go to this website, you can get the number. Okay, so it's keep rising still. And the study like this one is from the ice core, showing very, very good correlation between temperature and the CO2. Okay, so in the last several glacial, interglacial cycle, the CO2 concentration never exceeded 300. Right now, we are 415. Okay, so scientists are worrying, whether we're going to ever have this kind of glacial or interglacial cycle again. Okay, so ocean, lots of people, surprisingly, Hong Kong is surrounded by ocean, but our knowledge on the ocean are quite limited. Okay, so ocean is very important in absorbing those CO2, okay? So here, I don't have the detail to talk about, and don't worry about this detailed number because different model gives different number. But one thing, ocean is as important as the terrestrial ecosystem. They are about half-half in total primary production. And ocean also absorb about 1/3 of the anthropogenic CO2 we emit every year. So without ocean, the Earth will be much hotter. Okay? So what happened? How the ocean? This is what happened. Photosynthesis. Okay? Although this is a very complex, this is called a biological pump, but it starts with photosynthesis. It absorbs CO2. Okay? And most of this CO2, organic carbon, eventually return through respiration, degradation, etc. Okay? But a small portion exported to the deep ocean and eventually buried in the seafloor. Okay? So they will be there probably locked for 1,000 or million years. So that's very, very important, carbon sequestration. Okay, as we are now talking about carbon neutral, okay, zero emission, etc., but no one talking about ocean. Our university have some initiative. I went there, a briefing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this area, no ocean. And I told them ocean are equal all of your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, more than that. So they will add that. Okay, so I'm back to the cyanobacteria I study. These are very, very tiny things. smaller than 1 micrometer, okay? So you cannot even see them under microscope regular. So there's a few groups. One is called the Synechococcus, which I won't talk very detailed because I can talk hours about that. Okay, another one is Prochococcus. They're even smaller, okay, and they cannot even be seen by epiphoresis microscope. They can only be seen in this flow cytometry. Okay, I have 5 minutes. Okay, so why are they important? Because they are up to 50% of primary production in some oceanic waters. Okay, and the Prochococcus mostly only distributed in the warm subtropical region, okay, oceanic waters. If you go to Port Shelter in front of our campus, take some water, no Prochococcus, because only in very, very nutrient-poor open ocean water. But Synechococcus is everywhere, from equator all the way to polar, from fresh water to open ocean. So my focus is on Synechococcus, okay? So they have all different kind of phenotypes, different pigment types. These are all Synechococcus with different pigment composition, which I don't have time to go deep, okay? And also, phylogenetically, they're even more complicated, high diversity, because this forum is about biodiversity. Okay, so there's many different clade. Okay, so again, we are focused on this euryhaline species. Here we have a Pearl River. So this species can grow in very broad range of salinity. Okay, and they are understudied. Most of the study is in open ocean and this area. Okay. So I mentioned there's a lots of different clade, different types. They all have different features, physiology, ecology, and they have a different geographic distribution. Okay, for example, clade 1, clade 4 are kind of a cold water, okay, along this cruise. Clade 2 is typical warm water, subtropical, and clade CRD is related to the upwelling, equatorial upwelling. CRD means Costa Rica dome, which is where they first discovered. Okay, so and they are related, controlled by different environment factors. For example, this clade 1 and 4, they are negatively correlated to temperature. They love cold and nutrient, etc. Okay, due to time limit. Okay, so we have Hong Kong. Hong Kong is actually a hotspot of the diversity of Synechococcus. Okay, because we have a river, we have a monsoon. Okay, winter time, northeast monsoon. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, summertime, we have a southwest monsoon and river discharge. So there's a mixing of all kinds of water. That's why we have all type of Synechococcus. Okay, for example, here in the riverside and the Port Shelter, you see there's every month we do this study. There's a peak in summer, but different types. In the riverside, there's lots of green forest. And you see the different clade. Okay, some of them, they are all year round. Some of them only a special period of time. Okay, and if you compare the riverside with the UST side, okay, some season they are overlap. In the summer, it's completely separate. Okay, in this side is mostly 5.1, and over that side is 5.2. Okay, so I give me 1 more minutes. I'll talk a little bit about some of them fixed nitrogen. Okay, why they are important? Here we have eutrophication, too much nitrogen, but in the middle of ocean, no nitrogen, very, very low nitrogen, and that limited the primary production. Okay, so this cyanobacteria can fix nitrogen. So this nitrogen not only provide nutrient for themselves, they can also supply other phytoplankton to grow. Okay, so this, I don't have time. There's a different type of nitrogen fixer, cyanobacteria, okay? And I just want to show you one study we did from across the Pacific Ocean with the Japanese collaborator. This huge ship, they ship Toyota, belong to Toyota, they ship a car to North America. So we did kind of study, and we discover lots of different nitrogen-fixing cyanobacteria. Okay, so I think that's all. We are studying the effect of global warming, and we are going to study the so-called clade-specific, which means I told you there are many, many, many types, and we want to know their different response to the global warming. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Liu. Okay, time is running short, so moving right along, let's welcome another guest speaker, Professor Qiu Jianwen, the Professor of Department of Biology of Hong Kong Baptist University. The presentation topic is Searching for the Footprints of Marine Worms of Hong Kong. Welcome, Professor Qiu.
Thank you for the invitation to speak here. Again, like Hong Bing's talk, my talk is about something that people usually won't consider to be important for that group of organisms. So people won't even consider them when they evaluate the ecological values of the animals. So my talk is about worms. When people think about worms, normally they will think about terrestrial insects, but actually in the marine environment there are a lot of worms. So we have heard about flatworms, we have heard about roundworms. So we know flatworms, they have very simple body, they don't have a coelom, and roundworms, they have a pseudocoelom. But my talk will be focused on this group of animals. They are called polychaetes. So they belong to a class, traditionally a class of Annelida. In Annelida, we know there are polychaetes, there are oligochaetes represented by earthworm, and Hirudinea represented by leech. So what I'm focusing on is this group of annelids called polychaetes. So these organisms, they are called polychaetes because they have a lot of hair, a lot of chelae on their body, and attached to their parapodia. This is actually their locomotive organ. They used to move about. They used to swim, and they have a true coelom over here, and their body has a lot of segmentation, and their organs, some of their organs, like nephidia and nerve nodes, are repeated in each segments. So that's the polychaetes. But polychaetes, they have a lot of segments, but the segments were not formed in the beginning of their life. So in the beginning of their life, they have only very few segments. So these segments, they grow. Those near the head are old ones, and those at the tail, they are young ones. So as they grow, they elongate. So this is how their body is arranged. So polychaetes have undergone some changes over the years, like fishes. So their taxonomy has changed. Previously, some of these animals, peanut worms, spoon worms, and they don't have segmentation. And Poconofauna, which is a deep sea animal, they don't even have a gut. This were considered as separate phylum. But now they are considered as annelids. They are very closely related to polychaetes. So polychaetes, although they are not very impressive, they're not very beautiful, but they are ecologically important. They account for 70% of macrobenthos, which means if you take a grad of mud from the sea bottom and you sieve them, you'll see 70% of the animals are polychaetes. So they are critical components of the food web. They serve as an important node in the food chain. Polychaetes, they are very diverse. So as you can see from here, some are swimming, some attached to rocks, some move about freely. So how do you identify polychaetes? So we identify polychaetes by morphology. Traditionally, of course, recently, we also use molecular techniques to identify polychaetes. So we first look at the anterior structures. So they are very distinct, and also the parapodia and the setae. So in an earlier study I did with Professor Chen, from just one group of polychaetes, we see very different setae. So based on this, we can identify these polychaetes. So I'll just briefly introduce you to several groups of polychaetes. The first group of polychaetes are filter feeders, like the very commonly encounter polychaetes when you go diving in more tropical water. The Christmas tree worms, they are filter feeders, but they are also spirobids. They are also the feather dusty worm, Sabellis, and also this Chitopteris living in a tube, pumping water from this side to the fluid and acidic water from this side. So these are filter feeder. And there are also deposit feeders, like this one bamboo worm, and also this ice cream cone worm, and also this rock worm. And as well as this stelespid, like they look like Russian dolls. So very pretty with very short body. So they can be, some of them can be quite pretty, and there are some selective deposit feeders, like those spaghetti worm. They extend their tentacles to the surface of the mud, and they collect the organic matter, and they roll this organic matter into the mouth. So these are selective deposit feeders. But probably the most impressive ones are predators, like the nares. So they are common predators. And the fireworms, they have toxic venoms in their bristles. And Silis, which are famous for their remarkable ability to reproduce asexually, and Biodiversity, which can be identified very easy because their dorsal series is expanding like a leaf. And then the ambush predators, Onophes. So I'd like to share with you this video I took from the internet about this bobby worm, which is a famous predator of the marine water. It's located, its habitat is more tropical in Indonesia, but in Hong Kong, we have a relative of this bobby worm as well. So polychaetes, although they are not very pretty, most of them, but they have very different functions in the ecosystem. In Hong Kong, we have about 940 species. So just less than arthropods, molluscs, and fishes, but they are still a very dominant group of animals in Hong Kong. But the problems, we don't know much about them. So where you can find them, the first place you can find them is to go down to the water. This is how previously we collect these animals. We use the mark grab, we grab the mark and receive the mark, and we sort the mark. Sometimes you can get a lot of animals among them a lot are polycase from just one grab of mark, and then we saw them, we identify them. In addition to this, we can find them in a lot of other habitats, like fish farms. This one, a hydroides, is a small one. You wouldn't think you can find so many polycase just in one styrofoam put into the water. That's the picture I took when I did my PhD with Professor Chen. And also, in a fish farm, we also collect Chitoteras, and I named this after Professor Chen, although not very pretty. But it lives inside a tube, and it pumps water through the tube. So you can find animals in a lot of places. And they are also very common components of the coral community. 2 years ago, we found 2 species of these fireworms in Hong Kong. One of them actually lives in coral communities. We were interested in this because they had caused some panic to the public because they are toxic, as I have mentioned. If you are not very careful, you are in touch with the kitty, the infected area can be very can induce a very burning sensation. So in addition to this, there are also a lot of other prettier polycase, I would say. For instance, this is Spirobranchus, which is a close relative of Christmas tree worm, but it doesn't form a tree-like structure, although they are very colorful as well. So it drills into the coral, and it's very common in Hong Kong. Previously, we gave this name to AFCD, but recently I realized it's a new species, still undescribed. And also this Portuna and also Sabelestes, these 2 species are also wrongly identified. So these are also new species. So I will describe this species later on. And there are also other predators in the area. These are filter feeders. So we can find a lot of polycase in coral communities. Another place where you can find polycase are intertidal areas. So this new species was described a number of years ago when we visited Dingok. So we couldn't see the animal. We only saw the tube. But when we dig deeper, we saw these animals living inside. And it's a new species. And we also saw another species. This is a relative of the bobby worm, which is a fierce predator. But in Hong Kong, we have this species, Marfisa, Hongkongensis. So it has very powerful jaws as well. But people just didn't pay attention when they visit there. They're very common. And in the tidal area, we also found this ice cream worm from Maipo. So you wouldn't, sorry, I don't have a lot of time. So, but I'll briefly go through this very quickly. So when we visit Gold Coast, we saw a lot of these small sand piles. But when we look closer, we realize these are the pools of polycase. And when we dug inside, we saw very big lugworms. They're so big, they are chopstick size, each of them. So very, very impressive. And when we went to Harbour, we also saw a lot of polychaete tubes, and each of them is a polychaete. So polychaetes, they are very common, they are around us, but we just don't know about them. This is also a new species waiting for this Christian, but we haven't had time to do so yet. So the message I want to bring is when we visit a lot of places, we saw a lot of other animals, but we pay very little attention to polychaetes. And we feel that the soft shores, they deserve special attention because they are under the threat of development, they are under the threat of recreational activities. So for instance, when I look at some EIA reports, I saw very few names of polychaetes, and a lot of names given by other people, they are not even down to the species or down to the families. So they very poorly understood the diversity. So very impressive when I look at the photos of some newspapers, people actually encouraging them to go digging, climb digging, but it could be very destructive if you use this kind, especially if you have a lot of people and some of them using this kind of destructive sampling method. So after a low tide, you'll see how the habitat is destroyed. Okay, so I'll just stop here. I don't have time to go through. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Chiu. We also have another guest speaker, but who cannot join us today, in person today, but have pre-recorded a video about natural product derived anti-fouling coating and marine environmental protection. So let's watch the video provided by Ms. Ye Ma, young entrepreneur, OCES of Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and also the CEO of Ocean Science Hong Kong Limited.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad to be invited to this forum. I'm Ma Ye, CEO of Ocean Science Hong Kong Limited. The share I bring to you this time is natural product that ward anti-foulant coating and marine environmental protection. The ocean is a mysterious underwater kingdom in which countless creatures live. Some of them are grotesque. Some have special lives. You may think their way of life is very different from that of life on the land, but they have many similarities. We know that land butterflies need to undergo abnormal development, from caterpillars to chrysalids to butterflies. And there are similar creatures in the ocean, such as this and this. I don't mean the whales and turtles, but the hard little volcanoes attached to them. They are barnacles. The larval barnacles are just worms floating in the sea, and then they will attach on some hard surface for abnormal development. However, this has brought a lot of troubles to the sea turtles. According to the research, barnacles are not the only one that attach on the surface of other organisms. In fact, more than 4,500 different marine organisms has been found growing on the hard surface in the sea. We call them fouling organisms. In addition to sea turtles and whales, the human marine facilities are also suitable for them to grow, such as the bottom of our ship, the inside and outside of the submarine pipeline, offshore construction projects, the camera and the fishing nets in the sea farms. So, will the fouling issue bring us any trouble? In fact, the direct economic losses caused by fouling issue are as high as more than $27 billion per year. You may think this has nothing to do with you, but it is not. As long as there is folding, the ship will sink and the sealing resistance will increase. Thus, the ship will need to consume 40% more fuel. The ship owner will pass these expenses to the consumers in form of the goods and service. Therefore, the high prices of import products are partly due to the folding issue. It's just an economic loss, so what about the health and safety? Folding spots can clog the nets of the sea farming and make fish sick from lack of oxygen. They also plug pipeline and cause oil and nuclear leaks. No one wants to go through this, so people have long invented anti-folding coating. Anti-folding coating can effectively reduce the folding issue. It's widely applied to the surface of a variety of marine facilities. So, what is the principle of anti-folding coating? Poison and heavy metal. Yes, you heard right. In order to reduce the folding issue, humans have dropped large amounts of poison and heavy metal into the ocean. Over time, our ocean has been overwhelmed. Look at these conch. Poison makes them deformed or cancerous. And the blue oyster, they are beautiful but dangerous. We can't eat them. Their heavy metal content exceeds nearly 70 times. The influence of human beings on the ocean will return to human beings, along with the marine ecological chain and food chain. We will eat nearly 15 million tons of fish every year, and we need a safe ocean. However, according to the prediction of the IMO, the marine ecology will be completely destroyed in the next 40 years. People have long resisted toxic and harmful technologies. A lot of maritime personnel once held flags to protest. In October 2001, IMO convened a conference to adopt the Convention on the Control of Harmful Anti-Fouling System. Some toxic coating containing TBT are banned, but others are still in use. The world is urgently looking for new environmental protection anti-fouling coating technology. So here we come. We are OSL, Ocean Science Hong Kong Limited. We are from the team of the Professor Chen Pei-yuan of Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. After 30 years exploration and research, we have finally found a green and natural way to exploit the fouling organisms in the ocean. That is to use biological signals to guide fouling organisms away from signal source. You may not have noticed that the resources in the ocean are very limited. In this competitive environment, some bacteria in the ocean will release some special biological signals to keep away other creatures in order not to be eaten by nature's enemies. We call this special biological signal C-CIF021. We use this biological competition mechanism to integrate C-CIF021 with coating technology, so that our marine facilities can continuously release C-CIF021 like marine bacteria, so as to achieve harmless anti-fouling effect. About toxicity, we have conducted a large number of toxicity tests, and C-CIF021 is safe, not only to the fouling organisms, but also to the fish, shrimp, krill, dolphin, and so on. Even if C-CIF021 is ingested by marine organisms, it will be excreted quickly and will not cause disease or health problems to marine organisms. about the environmental protection. We investigated the degradation kinetics test. We found that in nature sea water, C602 was rapidly biodegraded with a half-life of half-day, while no clear degradation was observed for other technology after 4 days of monitoring. C602 has a reduced persistence and accumulation in marine environments and play a good role in protecting the marine environment. At present, we have conducted joint tests with some partners using small boats, large ships, fish nets, underwater cameras, various plants, and so on. By comparing these pictures, C602 shows us excellent result. We are working hard to popularize this technology in different marine fields and hope that we can enjoy a pollution-free ocean in the near future. Thank you.
Here we go to the Q&A session. First of all, may I now invite the moderator of this session, Ms. Emma Chow, the manager of Hong Kong branch of Southern Marine Science and Engineering Guangdong Laboratory, Guangzhou of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, to be the moderator of this part, and also all the guest speakers today to join the panel discussion, including Professor Thomas C.C. Wong, Professor Diwa Chong, Professor Liu Hongbin, and Professor Chiu Jianwen. Please come forward for the panel discussion.
Testing. Good. Thank you very much, Yan. So we really appreciate the audience continued support, both online and on-site. So before we start the first question, let us anchor the theme of today's forum, which is the COP15 biodiversity and also the COP26 climate change. So the co-proposal of the COP15 is 30 by 30, a plan to conserve 30% lands and sea areas by 2030. So for the COP26 climate change in Glasgow, UK, now there are almost 80% world economy is covered by the net zero targets and join the efforts to reduce the global warming to the 1.5 degree. So the first round warm-up question is regarding the both global initiatives. So which accelerated action will you suggest for sharing the biodiversity data and building up the ocean data hub between the governments, especially during this pandemic season? Maybe Professor Cho, starting from you.
Regarding the sharing of
biodiversity data. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, regarding the sharing of biodiversity data, I think currently there's some mechanisms allowing you to share the biodiversity data. For instance, I know for some group of animals, those data are widely available. For instance, in Hong Kong, we have Hong Kong FishNet. Although I don't do fish, I know for this kind of animals, we have very good database. But for some animals, we don't even know their existence. So I think more research should be done, and more incentives should be provided for young people to go into this field. So
So, Professor Liu, do you want to add some remarks?
I do not have much to add. As Professor Chu mentioned, yeah, there are probably no centralized one, but I know there's lots of different websites that host those data. For example, for protists, you know, Song Weibo, they have this global, you know, kind of sensors, many species. Everyone can add to it. So, and for genetic, you know, obviously there's a deposition, you know, so all kind of a variable there. Yeah.
So I want to add regarding the marine species, we do have Hong Kong marine species database. So that's why we know in Hong Kong there are roughly 6,000 marine species. Okay.
Well, how about you, Professor Chung?
Yes, in my understanding, I think I very agree with the previous professors, and also the marine about the an organism. It's not very simple, you know. Just this we are talking about the taxonomy and also distribution of that species, and also of course their habits and life cycles and so on and so forth. So just like, for instance, we have a fish base developed more than decades ago, and then still we are all making efforts to improve that, and they also, you know, these are huge work. It's about it's not only about just my work like taxonomy, the classification. It's also about the ecology. So lots of baseline data we need, and also we would like to more interns and also those students involved in this area, and then also they maybe I mean the knowledge, it covers a lot, huge subjects. So we have to combine the technology and so on and so forth. So I think that all the universities and also the collaborations of broad industries will be expected.
Thank you. Do you want to add something, Professor?
Yes, Emma. Thank you. To me, the answer is as simple as ABC. But A stands for artificial intelligence. B stands for big data. C stands for cloud-based. So what do I mean? First of all, we need to get even more dimension to our data. You know, not just one or two dimensions, but as many dimensions as possible. But how do we get all this data? AI, artificial intelligence. So maybe we'll be talking about robots in all levels of the marine life. After we collect all this data, with scientists, with researchers, they will be able to give us more information about marine life. And with that, we'll be knowing more, and therefore we know what to do next. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with your remarks here. So we received a couple of questions from our audience. So the first question is to Professor Thomas Wang. So we know that you have extensive working experience in the business world. So how to balance the ecological value and economic value for those small medium enterprise, especially for them, they don't have the pressure for releasing the environmental social governance report. So may I have your opinions on that?
Yes. I can give you an example. For example, if we want to travel to somewhere, to go to a destination, you can have the most beautiful car in front of you. But if you don't have an engine inside the car, I'm sorry, you're not going anywhere. And business is like the engine of the car. And SMEs, for example, in Hong Kong, 90% of the companies are SMEs. So SMEs are the engines. That is one thing. And the second thing I also want to mention is, because I start with destination. Destination is very important. We must know where we go to. For example, if before COVID, we all travel. When we travel, we have to ask ourselves a question, where are we going to? If we go to Hawaii, we will pack the things that is different if we would go to New York during winter time. But future is uncertain. If we don't know the future, how can we plan for the future? So the important thing is, how can we plan for the future when the future we plan for might not exist? Thank you.
Thank you for answering these questions. So the next question is to Professor Chong here.
Yep.
So as an expert in fish taxonomy, from your perspective, how do we enhance the knowledge to support the marine conservation in Hong Kong? And what are the critical information you want to share us?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. Because what we have to know about nature is about its structure and function. So when something has a structure, and then we know how it functions, and then we have to understand both. So just like fishes is not an exception. So we have to. I would like to focus on its life cycle. It's very basic biological knowledge that we focused on more than a century years ago. So it's very important for this basic information, how they live, where they lay eggs, and then they grow, and then just like fishes, it's very complicated, and also the polychaetes and so on, and algae. I think we all know that a creature is not only living in a very restricted area, what we call the habitat. Habitat is broad. It's just like some are the diadromous fishes. They penetrate sea and also river, and also sometimes we found some freshwater fishes, sometimes in pond, and then in the flooded, and then we go out to the river, a stream, and then find a breeding place. So from hatching, laying eggs, hatching, and then growing up, they sometimes change what they eat. So it's complicated. So we have to how to make a good conservation of all the species. So they're all related. Some are eaten and prey and predator. So we all have to concern the chain, the chain of food chain and so. So you have to know the life cycle and food habit, and so the habit itself. And so in Hong Kong, there's a very important characteristic we lack of is we lack of life cycle database on each species. So I spent a lot decades of in building the aquarium. First time for myself, and also after I established the Ichthyological Society, and then I built a very simple aquarium to let those interns and also the workers and the volunteers to observe how they grow, how they hatch, and when. So these we have to know first. Otherwise, we can't protect any species in Hong Kong. This is my feeling. Yes.
Thank you for answering these questions. Actually, from your previous presentation, it is also very encouraging to see that Hong Kong is doing quite well in the marine conservation, because Hong Kong only has 0.03% marine areas of our country, and we recorded over 20% marine species. It is quite encouraging, though. Yeah. So the next question will to Professor Liu. First of all, congratulations on your recent achievement. Professor Liu's team established a model to explain the influence of warming and human activities on the change of different phytoplanktons, which shed light on protection and provision of future blooms. So the questions will be, do you agree with the transnational marine science underestimated in our society? And what is your suggestions for our young scientists in that field? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. I think your question is about translational. Yeah, through today's talk, you see, we are doing both basic research and the translational research, and I agree there's lots of space we can improve. For example, as Professor Chen mentioned, also the professor in mainland, every species there's a value. the habitats, the species, the system, there's a value. The biodiversity, there's a huge value.
Yeah.
And also the last presentation about this anti-fouling.
Yeah.
So there's a lots of room, marine, research. Biodiversity, global warming, as well as conservation. You can create a startup company or lots of potential. Okay, so I think young people, certainly, you can get into academic research, and but also there's an opportunity to using your knowledge to create either a company or productivity products. Yeah, there's a. I think we need more people to come to this field. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Actually, for the UNESCO Ocean Decade Initiative, the mission is the transformative ocean science solutions for the sustainable development, connecting people and the ocean. I agree with Professor Liu, there is a huge room here for our young scientists. Next question is to Professor Cho. Also, congratulations on your recent new species discovery. Professor Cho's team discovered in Hong Kong water a new species of hard coral and 2 new species of nudibranch, right? Pronunciation. Yeah. So actually, the discovery of the new species is a vivid reflection of our Hong Kong marine biodiversity. So the question is, what is the role of our regional marine biodiversity? And could you please share with more information regarding your journey of new species discovery? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emma. Actually, regarding the discovery of new species, a lot of people are interested in animals and plants. When they don't go outside, they'll notice whether this species is different from the other species. But to do formal taxonomy training, I'm sure, like Professor Zhang in fish taxonomy, you need some training. And in the university, I think it's a good place to train students to do taxonomy. But of course, you need to go to the field as well, and you need to go into the water. And nowadays, a lot of professors are staying in the lab they don't go to the field. But every time I go to the field, I have some experience of new discovery, like those mudflat animals I see, and a lot of them are new animals. So although Hong Kong is quite well explored, a lot of there, even for corals, for example, a lot of divers, they see corals every day. They look at the pretty nudibranch every day, but they may not have the skill to identify them properly. So training is very important. So, thank you.
Training is the key for the next generations, and the people should pay more attention on the marine biodiversity.
And also another way to do it is to collaborate with the amateur scientists. So they, if they have more time to look at what's going on in the field, and if they have some new discoveries they want to confirm, maybe they can contact experts to make some joint discoveries.
Yeah, agree, totally agree. And also that we need to change our individual behavior as well as the institutional behavior. Since we still have several minutes left, let's take another round of questions before we close this session. So our country is committed for the net zero targets by the 2030 and also the carbon neutrality by the 2060. Our chief executive, Ms. Carrie Lam, also announced last year pledge to the carbon neutrality by 2050. So the question is, what is the link between carbon neutrality and the marine biodiversity? As the distinguished scholars here, so what's your opinion on the ocean science value chain from problem identification to the knowledge application? So maybe start from Professor Thomas Wong first.
Yes, I will look at this from because I'm from a business background. I will look at this more from a business perspective than an academic or scientific perspective. I think as a businessman, we understand, or some of us understand that the ocean is actually a very important climate regulator, and it helps a lot with our carbons. So that's why, as an individual or as a corporation, each and every one of us have to do our share and do our part, and we have to change our behavior. But to change our behavior, we must start with our mindset. So, for example, here with the HKUST and with all these professors here, they have done a tremendous amount of work on helping us to understand marine biodiversity, and more importantly, what we have to do and what we should do. So after that, if we add on these recommendations, then we'll be helping the ecosystem, helping planet Earth, and helping ourselves. Thank you.
Yes, because I think conservation, this meaning is very, very broad. It's not only the biodiversity, not only the living organism, and also including just like artworks, preserving artworks in museum. And also, in my concept, it's very, I think it's much more broad. As I think it should be applied to our soul. It's very important, because I'm very agree with Tommy, Thomas. Thomas. I think the conservation of our soul is about the human. It's a kind of species that if we don't well educated, then we can't act very good, So maybe sometimes we we are referring to some kind of carbon value or something, and this is only kind of a reference. So I think we have to know more about the structure and function of nature, and then also find out more indications. This is first, and then also more research and more education, and then the hand in hand. And then I think we have to have more conservation of our soul. It's education. And then let them know the truth. It's not about the commercial. It's not about the cosmetics or something. It's truth, and that's it, not selling. It's not about business. There's no business in nature. I think it's the only structure and function, and we have to penetrate into it, and then let those students and all citizens also all have to be educated, well educated, and know the truth, and then. I think all of our experts have a destination, and then have a right to speak something to everybody, but we have to tell the truth. So this is about the, first of all, research, and then education, and hand in hand with citizens and more people globally to do the conservation. This is I think it's much more important, and then we find out more indication in at the same time also.
Yeah,
yes.
Because the climate change affects all of us on the global, and
yes.
We should work together hand in hand instead of talk for talk.
And also the education is not good, and then our target species will be eaten up by the people. So also the consuming, how to consume, and then how many, how much is also the education. So this is all related to carbon.
Yes. Professor Liu?
Okay, maybe I add a little bit. We are talking about biodiversity and also climate change, right? We are talking about COP15 and the COP26. Yes. Okay, so I think these two are quite linked to each other. Okay, on one hand, global warming, climate change can affect the biodiversity. Like in ocean, we have a warming ocean, we have oxygen depletion, we have ocean acidification. All this can threaten the biodiversity. And on the other hand, this biodiversity can also help to the ocean, the ecosystem fitness. The one more diverse kind of community ecosystem can resist, the change. Okay, if you have a system with very few species, it will be if you have some sudden change of the environment, it will collapse. Okay, these are some kind of theory. Ecosystem with more diverse species, there will be more resilience. Okay, to the global change. So this, I think, the future research need to study the interaction of these two topics. Thank you.
I also agree with this point that with the knowledge about biodiversity, we can make a better choice in our daily life. Even everybody can contribute to reducing their carbon footprint, can help achieve carbon neutrality. Of course, there's some conflict between conservation and development. So it's a society's decision to make, to determine whether, for example, a project should go ahead, whether we should compensate enough for the loss. So.
Okay. Thank you all very much for your insightful sharing. For our on-site participants, so you can continue the dialogue with our invited speakers after the Q&A session. So since the time is limited, so I will pass the time to our MC Yan to continue the forum. So So thank you all very
Okay,
much
thank you.
to the Q&A session. So
Thank you.
Thank
Please
you.
be seated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before the closing remark and certificate presentation section, here you can see the QR code of the feedback form of today. Hope you enjoy today's event. So, to express our special gratitude to all guest speakers, may I now invite Professor Qian Pei Yuan and Professor Karen Zheng to present the thank you certificates and souvenir to all of our guest speakers. Please come forward. Okay. The first guest speaker, Professor Thomas Wong, please come forward to receive the thank you certificate and souvenir and have a photo with them. Okay. How many? Okay, Professor Wong, please remain on the left-hand side. Okay, Professor Wong, please remain on the left-hand side. We'll have a group photo with all guest speakers afterwards. And second, please welcome Professor Diwa Zhang. Okay, Professor Zhang, please remain on your left-hand side. And the next guest speaker, Professor Liu Hongbin, please come forward. Okay, last but not least, Professor Qiu Jianwen, please come forward. Okay, please remain, and all the guest speakers, please come forward and have a group photo with Professor Qian and Professor Zheng. Yes, let's take a group photo together. Okay, thank you. Professor Qian and Professor Zhang, please remain, and other guest speaker, please be seated. To appreciate our sincere gratitude for the Hong Kong branch team, we wish to present a certificate of thank you to all of them. Sir, to Hong Kong branch. Yes. As we know, the Hong Kong branch of Southern Marine Science and Engineering, Guangdong Laboratory Control staff team, they done a lot, make a great effort and success for this event. So as the representative of UNESCO Hong Kong Association, we would like to present them a thank you certificate to thank for all effort. Okay. Thank you. Other than Professor Chen, please be seated. And let's welcome Professor Chen to deliver the closing remarks for today's event.
Okay.
Is it working? Okay. Well, so the really exciting afternoon. Time passed very fast. On behalf of the organization, organizing the body of this the public forum, that means the Hong Kong branch of Southern Marine Science Engineers Guangdong Laboratory, and also to the UNESCO to the Hong Kong. I'd like to thank you, all of you, for attending this public forum on marine biodiversity. I also really want to thank all the distinguished speakers for today's public forum. Their talks definitely enrich our knowledge on marine biodiversity. As Mr. Ng pointed out, regarding the biodiversity protections, there are a number of the issues. First of all, do we have the desire to know what's up there? Secondly, as some of our guest speakers pointed out, do we know what they're doing there in terms of ecological function and service? My impression is, overall, Hong Kong is very, very rich in marine biodiversity, but there are still huge knowledge gaps. There are lots of the species, regardless of the fish, all the worms, all other marine organisms. We still, do not know many of the species in terms, of the taxonomy, in terms of their ecological functions. Overall, as Mr. Ng pointed out, when Hong Kong society talking about the environment, lots of time people even don't mention about the marine systems. So we tend to forget about it. But Hong Kong is a coastal city, and we're surrounded by waters. When we're talking about our environment, without consider component of the ocean, also the marine, how can we addressing so-called environmental issue here? So we are facing challenges today, regardless whether it's a global climate change, whether we're talking about the CO2 emissions. Without understanding ocean better, so that we cannot really find a proper solution to deal with our problems. So biodiversity is the key words for today's public forums. You and I, we are also the citizens of one planet. We share the richness of the biodiversities, but more importantly, we share the responsibilities. The responsibility for protecting our biodiversity and responsibility for protecting our environment. So we all have to work together to strike the balance between development and conservation. Professor Wang, presented a very interesting, very exciting talk, talking about romance, right? To me, a romance, we can enjoy it, is enjoy the nature, the beauty of the natures. But at the same time, keep in mind that we have to live together, we have to respect other species on our planet. So all of us have to join a hand and working together to protect our living environment. So that's all the message I learned from today's forums. That's also the message I really like to share with everybody in this room and also online. So let's work together to making our world, the world, even better. So thank you very much again for attending this public forum. So now I can say that we can close this the forum, and thank you and best wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Chen. And well, ladies and gentlemen, and all distinguished guests, thank you for making time in your busy schedule with us in this afternoon. So, and this is all over for today's event. And wish you all have a pleasant day. Thank you.